Every single day you're making mistakes you don't even realize. Not because you're careless, but because your brain is tricking you. From trusting the wrong people to falling for simple illusions to wasting years chasing the wrong goals. These aren't accidents, they're predictable traps of the human mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
In The Art of Thinking, clearly, Rolf Dobelli rips the mask off these hidden biases and shows us just how easily we get fooled.
He really does.
The real question is, are you ready to confront the uncomfortable truth about how irrational you really are?
That is the question.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, all.
Welcome to Book Podcast Zone. I'm Emma, your guide through today's deep dive.
And I'm John. I'm really thrilled to be diving into this with you today.
Me too. Because today we're embarking on, it feels like a crucial quest, doesn't it? Into this fascinating, sometimes kind of frustrating world of cognitive biases.
Definitely. And we're using Rolf Dobelli's brilliant book, The Art of Thinking Clearly, as our map, so to speak.
Right, our guide to navigate these, common mental shortcuts and blind spots that often lead us so far astray, and often without us even realizing it.
Exactly. So our aim with this deep dive is to pull out the most impactful nuggets of knowledge from Dobelli's work. It's quite extensive.
Yeah.
We want to help you truly understand how your brain, despite its amazing power, consistently tries to trick you. And maybe more importantly, how you can arm yourself against these pervasive errors in judgment.
We'll dig into their historical roots, look at some very modern examples, even projecting into 2025 a bit.
Right. And equip you with practical insights, things you can actually use to think clearer, make better decisions, and hopefully achieve those crucial aha moments.
Yeah, the ones that genuinely shift your perspective. Because this isn't just like abstract theory, is it?
Not at all. It's about real, tangible implications for your everyday life. From the smallest personal choices, what you buy, who you trust.
All the way up to big professional.
Exactly. So are you ready to dive in? Maybe discover some uncomfortable truths about how our minds operate.
I know I am. Let's do it.
Okay, let's kick things off with a concept that immediately resonated with me. It's so easy to look at the people who made it and think they must have the secret formula.
Totally.
But what Dobelli unveils in Chapter 1, his chapter called Why You Should Visit Cemeteries, it's this really profound truth about survivorship bias.
Yes. It's about how we often completely overlook the vast majority who didn't make it.
Right, exactly. It's like only ever reading the, gleaming success stories and thinking that's the whole picture.
Yeah, and ignoring the cemetery, as he calls it.
Precisely. And what's particularly fascinating here is that this bias isn't just like a recent thing that popped up with social media influencers.
Right.
Its roots stretch way back to a truly critical period during World War II, actually.
Right.
It involved bringing science to bear on a very real-world problem.
You're talking about Abraham Wald, right?
Yeah.
The planes.
That's the one. Abraham Wald's pioneering work on bullet-ridden planes. So initially, the engineers, they were looking at the planes that returned from missions, and they saw where they were getting hit. Lots of holes in the wings, the fuselage.
And they thought, okay, these areas are taking hits, so let's reinforce them. Seems logical.
It does seem logical on the surface. But Wald, with his statistical genius, he realized they were looking at the wrong data set entirely.
How so?
Well, the planes they were studying were the survivors. The planes that got hit in the other areas, the engines, the cockpit, places that didn't have bullet holes on the returning planes.
Yeah.
Well, those planes simply didn't make it back at all.
Wow. So the lack of holes was actually the key information.
Exactly. His counterintuitive conclusion was you should reinforce the undamaged areas on the returning planes because those were the areas where a hit proved fatal.
That's incredible. It flips the whole thing on its head.
It really does. And this insight formalized the error of focusing only on what survived.
Yeah.
It became a foundational example of survivorship bias and really highlights how easily we misinterpret data when we only see one side of the coin.
That is a powerful lesson. And it truly is just as relevant today, maybe even more so with all the information flying around.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you look at, say, 2025 headlines, you'll see the media's spotlight constantly on the tech unicorns dominating the headlines, right? Or the hype around the latest AI boom.
Always the winners.
We hear constantly about the companies that made it big, the founders who became billionaires overnight. But what about the other side of that coin?
The failures.
Yeah. The 2024 collapse of many AI startups, where maybe 90% of them failed despite all the hype.
Yeah.
Those stories, They rarely make the news, do they?
No, they get buried. The silence around those failures is exactly what Dobelli is talking about. It feels like we're constantly being fed this diet of highlights, completely ignoring the blooper reel.
Yeah, the massive blooper reel.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, specifically in the U.S. context, think about the endless success stories of entrepreneurs. You know, the ones from Silicon Valley or Austin who make it big.
Featured on Forbes or Shark Tank.
Exactly. We celebrate the overnight successes like Sarah Blakely with Spanx or Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook, but we often forget the countless, literally countless individuals who poured their life savings into a startup.
Yeah, maybe in a garage in Boise, Idaho, or some co-working space in Detroit.
Right, and those ventures just never got off the ground. Their stories are never told. Their websites are defunct. Their patents gather dust.
It's invisible.
Completely. So a true, balanced understanding of entrepreneurship, or really any field with high failure rates, it requires visiting that startup graveyard of failed ventures.
Right. Thinking about maybe a defunct e-commerce site from last year, or that promising local restaurant that closed its doors.
It's a vital perspective that's almost entirely hidden from our view.
So the crucial takeaway here for you, our listener, is to really try not to be solely seduced by success stories.
Yeah, resist that pull.
Actively seek out the failures. Look for the stories of things that didn't work out. It helps you gain a more balanced and realistic perspective.
It's not about being pessimistic either.
No, not at all. It's about enabling you to take more calculated, informed risks. It gives you a much clearer, more nuanced picture of reality.
It means looking for the whole story, not just the polished highlight reel.
Exactly. So like, subscribe, and share if you're finding this helpful. We've got a lot more biases to uncover.
That's a great point about seeing success because it ties into another fascinating trap Dobelli discusses. This idea that we often confuse what was selected for with what was caused by an environment.
Ah, yes. This is the swimmer's body illusion, right? Chapter 2, Does Harvard Make You Smarter?
That's one. What's the fundamental error we're making there?
It's so counterintuitive, isn't it? This bias highlights our tendency to completely mistake selection criteria for results. We mistakenly believe certain attributes or environments are caused by an activity, when actually those attributes were selected for in the first place.
Right, like the swimmers.
Exactly. My favorite analogy is seeing, professional swimmers. They all have these incredible physiques, broad shoulders, lean bodies, and we might think, wow, swimming gives you that body.
Yeah, that intense training must sculpt them.
But the illusion is that these individuals were likely predisposed to that body type before they became elite swimmers. Their build made them good at swimming, so they excelled and stuck with it. The sport didn't create the body, it selected for it.
That's a perfect way to put it. And historically, this links back to psychological studies in the 1960s on attribution errors.
Okay.
These studies showed how people mistakenly attribute outcomes to external factors like the swimming training, rather than inherent traits or prior selection.
So we look for the external magic bullet.
Exactly. Or the special place, rather than the underlying predispositions that were already there. It makes us really susceptible to marketing and misleading promises, Believing a certain college makes you successful or a specific program makes you fit.
And it is absolutely everywhere today, especially in 2025 thinking. Just think about the illusion that elite environments like Harvard create success.
Right. The prestige factor.
People believe getting into a top university is the cause of future success, when in reality, those institutions are primarily selecting individuals who already exhibit traits that predispose them to success.
Like intelligence, drive, discipline.
Precisely. They're gathering the already strong, not necessarily making them strong. It's a filtering mechanism as much as a transformative one.
And you see it with gurus, too.
Oh, yeah. Social media gurus constantly sell millionaire mindsets or these success formulas, making it seem like their courses are the key.
Buy my course, get rich.
Right. But in reality, it's often their inherent charisma, maybe their existing network or their relentless drive traits they already possessed before creating the course that drove their wealth, not necessarily the content of their courses themselves. It's a classic case of confusing correlation with causation, dressed up as a product.
That's a really insightful point, and it raised an important question for you, the listener, to reflect on. Think about fitness models or celebrities endorsing diet plans.
The before and after shots.
Right. You might admire their sculpted physiques and genuinely believe their specific diet or workout program is the magic bullet.
Yeah, if I just do that, I'll look like them.
But it's highly likely they had genetic predispositions, maybe dedicated personal trainers, significant resources before even starting that specific plan. The plan didn't create the success. It was applied to someone already set up for it.
Right, or like aspiring actors moving to Hollywood.
Exactly. Believing the city itself will make them a star, when in reality, Hollywood attracts those already possessing certain traits, immense talent, and that unwavering drive.
Or a kid who's amazing at baseball gets into an elite sports academy in Florida.
It's often because they already have that natural talent and dedication, not solely because the academy somehow magically transformed them from an average player. This illusion guides so many of our personal aspirations, often leading us to chase the wrong things.
So the key takeaway here is to really reflect. Reflect on your own natural strengths and suitability for a path, rather than blindly chasing superficial outcomes or these illusory promises.
Yeah, know thyself, right.
Exactly. Seek environments that genuinely fit you and your inherent capabilities, not necessarily those that merely promise to create you into something you're not. Understand what you bring to the table first, and then find where that talent can truly flourish.
That's wise advice.
Yeah.
And building on that idea of, well, seeing what we want to see, or maybe seeing things that aren't really there.
Right.
Chapter 3, Why You See Shapes in the Clouds, introduces the clustering illusion.
Ah, yes. This one taps into our deeply ingrained human need to find patterns, doesn't it? Even when there's absolutely nothing but randomness staring us in the face.
It really does. Our brains seem hardwired for it.
It's often quite charming in everyday life, right? Like seeing a face in a cloud or an animal shape in a piece of toast or a coffee stain.
Pareidolia, they call it.
Right. But it can be seriously misleading when it comes to important decisions. Our brains are just, they're pattern recognition machines, always switched on.
Sometimes to our detriment.
Yeah, even when the input is just static.
And that's because this cognitive tendency, it likely traces back to deeply rooted evolutionary instincts. Think about our ancestors.
Okay.
Needing to spot a predator in the rustling bushes. Seeing a pattern, even a false positive, thinking you saw a lion when it was just the wind, was often a matter of survival.
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. Better to see a predator that isn't there than miss one that is. But this survival mechanism, while useful back then, has been formally explored in 1950s statistical research on false positives. It highlights how our powerful pattern-matching machines can sometimes lead us way astray in a world filled with complex, often truly random data. We see signals in the noise.
And it continues to trick us today, often with really significant financial implications. Thinking about 2025 again, you might find yourself spotting trends in crypto charts that simply aren't there.
Oh yeah, the chart patterns. Head and shoulders, flags.
Right. We saw this play out dramatically during that volatile digital currency dip, remember? Traders lost millions betting on patterns they were convinced they had cracked.
They thought they saw a predictable sequence.
But they were seeing signals where there was only noise, purely random fluctuations that just felt like a streak or something predictable. It's like believing a coin flip knows its past results. It doesn't.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And to bring that closer to home for our listeners, think about someone looking at a series of stock market fluctuations on Wall Street.
Okay.
They become convinced they see a head and shoulders pattern, maybe, that signals a future crash or a boom.
And then they might invest heavily based on this perceived pattern.
Right. Only to find the market behaves completely randomly, or at least not according to that pattern. Or even in everyday life, maybe after hearing 3 news stories about, I don't know, unusual animal sightings in different states in 1 week.
You start thinking, wow, there's a nationwide animal migration event happening.
Exactly. When it's probably just a statistical fluke or maybe heightened media attention on the topic for some reason.
Or gambling. People see hot streaks all the time.
Oh, absolutely. Like a slot machine at a Las Vegas casino paying out 3 times in a row. People start believing it's due for another win, despite each spin being a totally independent event with no memory of the previous outcome.
Our brains just crave that order, don't they? Even in total chaos.
You really do.
So the crucial takeaway here is to always, always test supposed patterns. Use data, use statistics, and bring a healthy dose of skepticism, especially in high-stakes situations like investing or making big life decisions.
Don't make costly leaps of faith based on spurious correlations.
Yeah, don't let your brain trick you into seeing connections or streaks that aren't actually real, because the consequences can be pretty significant. Remember to like, subscribe, and share to keep exploring these biases with us.
Good reminder. Now, moving from seeing patterns that aren't there to, ironically, confirming our own patterns of belief. Chapter 7-8, Beware the Special Case, and the rather dramatically titled Murder Your Darlings expertly unpack the pervasive issue of confirmation bias.
This is a big one, and maybe one of the hardest to overcome because it's so deeply ingrained in how we think.
It really is fundamental.
At its core, confirmation bias is our tendency to interpret new information in a way that, surprise, surprise, confirms what we already believe.
Fits nicely into our existing worldview.
And then, almost unconsciously, we actively seek out information that supports our views while conveniently ignoring or even actively dismissing contradictory evidence.
Right. We filter reality.
And that murder your darlings part adds that crucial, often quite painful layer. It's about resisting the urge to defend cherished ideas, those darlings we hold so dear, even when faced with clear, disconfirming evidence.
Which is incredibly difficult for us humans. Letting go of a pet theory or a long-held belief feels almost like a personal attack.
It does. This phenomenon was famously demonstrated in Peter Watson's 1960s experiments. He showed how people selectively sought supporting data for their hypotheses rather than trying to disprove them, which is actually how science is supposed to work.
Right. Falsification. But our brains don't naturally work that way. Cognitive psychology built on this, showing how our brain's efficiency often prioritizes confirming existing mental frameworks or schemas.
It's less cognitive work, right?
Exactly. It's less effort for the brain to integrate new information if it aligns with what we already believe. It just reinforces existing neural pathways. This leads to a powerful, often subconscious resistance to anything that challenges our worldview. It makes us quite resistant to changing our minds.
And we see this amplified dramatically today, in 2025. Just think of the polarized social media echo chambers.
Oh, absolutely. Filter bubbles.
People only follow and interact with those who share their viewpoints. This tribalism just amplifies confirmation bias. You see it everywhere, like in climate change debates, where sides seem to ignore new data if it doesn't fit their established narrative.
Or even on a business front. We often see entrepreneurs doubling down on feeling AI ventures, for instance.
Yes, stubbornly ignoring market shifts or clear signs that their product isn't gaining traction.
Simply because they are so emotionally and financially invested in their initial vision, their darling project. They see what they want to see, even when the objective data is screaming otherwise.
It's a powerful self-deception mechanism.
It really is. And to make it even more vivid for you, our listeners, think about political polarization in the U.S. It's a prime example. Someone who identifies as strongly liberal might exclusively consume news from, say, MSNBC or the New York Times, and actively dismiss anything from Fox News or Breitbart as fake news or propaganda.
Right, reinforcing their existing worldview.
Precisely. And conversely, a conservative might do the exact opposite. They interpret every piece of information through their specific political lens, finding ways to confirm their party's stance on issues like immigration or economic policy. They become almost impervious to alternative perspectives.
It creates these parallel realities almost.
It really can feel that way. Or in business. Think of a tech company, maybe in Seattle. They've invested millions in a new VR platform, convinced it's the future.
They're darling.
Right. But even as market data shows low user adoption, dwindling investor interest, the team might selectively highlight any small positive user feedback or point to a minor competitor who's struggling.
While dismissing widespread criticism as misinformed, or they just don't get it yet.
Exactly. Rather than confronting the possibility that their darling project is actually failing.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is to actively, consciously challenge your own assumptions. It means making a real effort to seek out diverse, even opposing viewpoints.
Yeah, step outside the echo chamber.
And rigorously test your most cherished ideas. Be willing to try and disprove them. Embrace the discomfort of being wrong.
It sounds painful, but
truly, that discomfort is a powerful, maybe the most powerful path to deeper understanding and ultimately to much better decision-making. It's like a mental muscle we all need to flex more often.
Well said. And building on how our minds filter information, Dobelli in Chapter 11, Why We Prefer a Wrong Map to No Map at All, brilliantly illuminates another key bias, availability bias.
This bias is all about how our mental shortcuts can lead us astray again, isn't it? It describes our tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily recalled or vivid in our minds, even if those events are statistically quite rare.
Yeah. Stuff that pops into your head first feels more important.
Exactly. The information that is most readily available to us, maybe because it's dramatic or recent or emotionally charged, it just feels more important or probable than it actually is. And that feeling overrides the actual statistics.
And this concept was deeply explored by Kahneman and Tversky back in their 1970s research, especially looking at risk assessment.
Okay.
They showed how memorable, dramatic events, like a highly publicized plane crash, for instance, are often grossly overestimated in terms of their probability.
Compared to, say, driving a car.
Exactly. Compared to less dramatic but far more common risks, like routine car accidents. Our minds are just naturally drawn to the vivid, the sensational. It leads us to believe these headline-grabbing events are more common and threatening than they truly are. It's a shortcut our brain takes to avoid complex statistical analysis.
You can see this playing out with such clarity today.
Yeah.
Thinking about 2025, consider the fear of rare cybercrimes.
Big data breaches, ransomware attacks.
Right. They're constantly being highlighted in the news or going viral on social media. And while cybercrime is undoubtedly a real threat, these sensational stories make for dramatic headlines.
They'll grab your attention.
And they can overshadow the much more common, but less dramatic, everyday scams or phishing attempts that are statistically far more likely to actually affect you.
Yeah, the boring stuff that gets most people.
Right. The vividness of a major high-profile hack makes it seem like a greater personal threat, leading us to maybe over-prioritize certain fears or security measures while neglecting others.
Absolutely. And to give a concrete U.S. example, after a highly publicized shark attack, maybe off a beach in Florida,
People freak out.
yeah, people might cancel their entire vacation plans despite the infinitesimally small probability of such an event happening to them.
Compared to, like you said, slipping in the shower at home or getting in a car accident on the way to the airport.
Exactly. The risks we face every day are often much higher, but less memorable. News coverage of sensational rare events like a mass shooting or a major celebrity scandal makes them seem far more common or threatening than they statistically are.
And that influences public perception.
Hugely. And even policy debates in Washington, D.C., sometimes leading to an overemphasis on addressing these highly visible but relatively infrequent problems, while maybe ignoring more systemic, less dramatic issues.
So people might worry far more about, say, a terrorist attack on a flight
Which gets tons of media coverage.
than the much, much higher risk of heart disease, simply because the images of the former are more vivid and easily recalled.
Precisely. It's the availability heuristic in action.
So the powerful listener takeaway here is to consciously seek out broader statistical data to balance your understanding of risks and opportunities.
Look beyond the headlines.
Exactly. Don't let vivid or easily recalled information, especially if it's dramatic or sensationalized, dictate your decisions or your fears. Dig deeper, beyond the immediate emotional impact, to get a truly objective picture. Use the data, not just the story.
That's excellent advice. We've spent some time exploring how our perceptions can trick us. Now let's pivot a bit to how these biases directly affect our actual decision-making processes.
Okay, let's dive into Chapter 4. If 50 million people say something foolish, it is still foolish. This one explores social proof. And oh boy, this hits close to home for anyone who's ever followed a trend they later regretted.
It's so true. The core concept here is our deeply ingrained assumption that if a large number of people are doing something, it must be the correct course of action.
The wisdom of the crowd. Or maybe the madness.
Or maybe the madness, yeah. Even if it's completely irrational or, as the title suggests, even dangerous. We instinctively rely on the crowd to guide us, often without engaging our own critical faculties. We just sort of follow along.
This bias has incredibly strong historical and psychological roots, doesn't it? Solomon Asch's 1950s conformity experiments.
Classic studies.
They vividly demonstrated how peer pressure can sway individual judgment, even when the answer is obviously visibly wrong. Participants in these experiments would often agree with a clearly incorrect group consensus just to conform, to not stand out.
It's uncomfortable to go against the group. And Robert Cialdini's extensive work on influence also explored this deeply, showing how social proof is a powerful, almost automatic trigger for compliance and belief.
It's a fundamental social rule we've evolved with, right? A shortcut for navigating complex social situations. If everyone's running that way, maybe I should too.
Exactly. Saves thinking, but can lead you off a cliff.
Yeah.
And we see this playing out with alarming speed in 2025, especially in the digital realm. Think about those viral TikTok challenges.
Some of them are terrifying. Like those extreme fasting trends.
Right. Those lured millions into health risks. The sheer volume of people participating, the number of views, the trending status, it all created this irresistible social proof that these dangerous fads were acceptable, even desirable.
The unspoken logic was, well, everyone else is doing it, so it must be fine, completely overriding individual health considerations or common sense.
Precisely. And to bring that closer to our listeners' everyday experiences, think back to the toilet paper crisis and the start of the pandemic in the
Oh, God, yes. The empty shelves.
One person nervously buys extra, others see it, they assume there must be a good reason, maybe a shortage they don't know about, and soon store shelves are empty. Not because of actual scarcity initially, but because of social proof triggering panic buying.
It was pure herd mentality. Or think about a new restaurant opening in a trendy neighborhood, maybe in Brooklyn. If there's a line out the door every night, even if the food isn't actually exceptional, people assume it must be amazing because, look, everyone else is going.
The line itself becomes the proof of quality. This can also apply to investment bubbles, of course. People buy into a stock or a cryptocurrency simply because everyone else is making money.
Yeah, FOMO, fear of missing out.
Exactly. Without doing their own due diligence, often right before a crash. The herd mentality is incredibly powerful and often financially devastating.
So the key listener takeaway here is question the herd. Your unique perspective and independent judgment are invaluable tools.
Don't underestimate them.
Using them can help you avoid collective mistakes and protect yourself from irrational trends, whether they're about health, finance, fashion, or anything else. Think for yourself.
A tough but essential lesson. And speaking of potentially devastating financial decisions, our next topic from Chapter 5 is Why You Should Forget the Past. Here, Dobelli tackles the infamous sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, this is another one that I think we all fall victim to more often than we'd like to admit. It's so hard to let go.
Absolutely. This bias highlights our deeply irrational tendency to continue investing time, money, or effort into a failing endeavor simply because of what we've already put into it.
Right, not based on its future potential, but on the past investment.
Exactly. We're essentially trapped by our past investments, psychologically unable to cut our losses and move on. The mental accounting of what's already spent or lost becomes more important than rationally evaluating the future prospects.
It's like throwing good money after bad, isn't it? Just because you already threw in some bad money.
Precisely. This error was meticulously exposed by Kahneman and Tversky's 1970s behavioral economics research. They showed its profound impact on decisions ranging from huge military strategies
Like prolonged wars that continue despite clear signs of failure.
to massive business projects that are just hemorrhaging resources. The psychological pain of admitting a past investment was a mistake often outweighs the rational decision to stop the bleeding, even when it's clearly the better path forward.
It's about protecting our ego, maybe. Admitting we were wrong.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And it's still rampant today. In 2025, we constantly see companies clinging to outdated tech platforms, despite advancements in AI, for example.
Yeah, wasting billions trying to prop up legacy systems.
Simply because they've already invested so much over the years, they can't let go of the past investment, even when the future is clearly pointing in a different, more innovative, and potentially more profitable direction.
That capital could be much better spent elsewhere, but the sunk cost keeps them locked in, throwing good money after bad.
It's so true. And to give a relatable U.S. live example, imagine you've bought a non-refundable ticket for a Broadway show in New York City.
Right.
$200 down the drain if you don't go.
Okay.
And on the day of the show, you wake up feeling really sick, like fever, chills, the works.
Yeah.
Despite feeling terrible, you might still force yourself to get dressed, drag yourself to the theater, and sit there miserably. Why? Because you already paid for it.
Right. Can't let the money go to waste.
But the money is gone regardless. It's sunk. Your decision should be based purely on whether seeing the show now, in your current state, is worth the additional suffering versus staying home and recovering.
That makes so much sense, but it's hard to do in the moment.
It is. Another example, a local business owner, maybe in Chicago. They spent 5 years developing a product that just isn't selling. The market doesn't want it. Instead of cutting their losses and pivoting to something new, they keep pouring marketing dollars into it, thinking, I've already invested so much time and money, I can't give up now.
Which often leads to even greater financial ruin.
Exactly. Or think of a college student who realizes, maybe 3 years in, that they actively dislike their major.
Yeah, but they think, I've come this far.
Right. They continue with it because they've already completed 3 years and don't want to waste their previous effort and credits. even if it means spending more time and money on a path they don't want. It's a constant battle against our own psychology.
So the critical listener takeaway here is to practice the discipline. And it is a discipline of cutting your losses bravely.
Focus on the future.
Focus on the future potential of an investment or decision, not on what's already gone and can't be recovered. It's about having the courage to move forward, not being held hostage by the past. Evaluate based on future costs and benefits.
That's a powerful call to action. And speaking of feeling obligated, our next bias from Chapter 6 is titled, Don't Accept Free Drinks. And it explores the powerful concept of reciprocity.
Ah, yes. I feel like this one is wielded by marketers absolutely everywhere, the power of free.
It absolutely is, because it works. This bias describes our deep-seated, almost automatic need to return favors, even if those favors are unsolicited or minor.
Like someone holding a door for you, you feel you should say thank you or do something similar later.
Exactly. It creates a subtle but incredibly powerful psychological obligation. We feel indebted even when we haven't asked for anything. It triggers a need to square the ledger.
The historical and psychological roots of reciprocity are fundamental to human social interaction, aren't they? Robert Cialdini's 1970s studies on influence.
Foundational work.
They extensively documented how even small gifts or gestures can manipulate behavior and create a strong sense of indebtedness. It's a fundamental social rule. If someone gives us something, we feel a compelling urge to give back.
Even if we didn't want the initial gift. It's deeply wired into our social programming. Societies function on this give and take.
But it can be exploited.
Oh, absolutely. And you see this all the time in 2025. Think about freemium apps that hook users with free trials.
Yeah, give you a taste of the good stuff.
Right, they give you a taste of the premium features. And once you've experienced those benefits, even for free, there's a psychological pull, a sense of obligation that then leads to subscriptions.
Because they've given you something valuable.
And now you feel a subtle pressure to reciprocate by becoming a paying customer. It's a highly effective, almost invisible marketing strategy.
It really is. And to give a U.S. live example, think of charity organizations that send you unsolicited gifts in the mail.
Right, like personalized address labels or a small notepad.
Exactly, along with their donation request. You didn't ask for it, but receiving it creates this subtle internal pressure to donate.
You feel kind of bad just throwing it away and not giving back.
Or imagine you're in a car dealership, maybe in Phoenix. The salesperson offers you a free bottle of water, maybe some coffee, spends a lot of time just chatting, building rapport.
Being nice.
Right. This seemingly kind gesture can make you feel more obligated to consider their offer seriously, maybe trust them more, even if the deal isn't objectively the best one you could get.
Or free samples at a grocery store.
Yeah.
You try the cheese, it's okay, but you feel kind of obligated by it now.
Precisely. Or a free consultation service. It's all leveraging this bias. It's truly a pervasive tactic in sales and marketing.
So the key listener takeaway is to be acutely aware of free offers, whether they pop up in marketing, sales, or even personal relationships.
Yeah, understand the potential dynamic. Understand that there might be hidden strings or subtle psychological pressures attached. Recognize the feeling of obligation when it arises so you can remain in control of your choices and avoid feeling manipulated.
Don't let a small, unsolicited gesture obligate you to a larger commitment you didn't intend to make.
That's excellent advice. And speaking of subtle pressures, our next bias from Chapter 9, Don't Bow to Authority, forces us to confront the potent authority bias.
Ah, yes. This one explains so much about human behavior throughout history and sometimes, unfortunately, leads to terrible outcomes.
It really does. The core concept refers to our powerful tendency to obey or believe figures of authority.
Even if their directives are questionable or their credentials might be dubious.
We often just switch off our own critical evaluation when someone in a perceived position of authority speaks. We default to their presumed expertise or legitimacy.
The historical and psychological roots here are, frankly, chillingly illuminated by Stanley Milgram's controversial 1960s obedience studies.
The shock experiments.
Yeah. Those experiments vividly demonstrated how ordinary people, everyday folks, would administer what they believed were dangerously painful, even potentially lethal, electric shocks to another person.
Just because an authority figure, a researcher in a white lab coat, told them to continue?
Exactly. It showed how powerful the impulse to obey authority can be, powerful enough to override personal conscience and critical judgment, even to horrific extents. It's a stark reminder of our vulnerability to this bias.
And it continues to be a significant issue today. In 2025, we constantly see wellness influencers with dubious credentials on platforms like Instagram or TikTok.
Oh yeah, huge followings, slick presentation.
They might have a massive following and project this image of expertise, and this perceived authority then sways millions on health fads that might be ineffective, unproven, or even actively harmful.
People follow their advice based on their perceived authority, their follower count, their confidence, not necessarily on verifiable facts or actual scientific evidence. It's the halo effect of authority, regardless of real expertise.
It's so unsettling how easily that happens. And to give a US Live example for our listeners, think of seeing an actor playing a doctor in a white lab coat endorsing a specific brand of over-the-counter medicine in a TV commercial.
The symbol is powerful.
That visual cue of the lab coat, a potent symbol of medical authority, makes us more likely to trust the recommendation, even though we know intellectually it's just an actor reading lines.
Or during a public health crisis, people might blindly follow advice from a charismatic public figure or a politician.
Without checking the scientific consensus or considering whether that person actually has any expertise on the specific matter, their position gives them undue influence.
Right. Or in a corporate setting, think about a junior employee. They might hesitate to challenge a decision made by a senior executive, even if they see a clear flaw in the plan.
Why? Simply because of the executive's position and perceived authority. They don't want to rock the boat or question the boss.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is always question authority. Respectfully, perhaps, but question it nonetheless.
Yeah. Check credentials. Scrutinize the evidence they present. Seek independent verification, especially from diverse sources.
Before blindly accepting pronouncements, especially when it comes to significant decisions concerning your health, your finances, or even public policy, your critical thinking is truly your best defense against being misled by authority.
That's a vital reminder. And speaking of our own judgment, moving on to Chapter 15, Dobelli addresses why you systematically overestimate your knowledge and abilities. This is the pervasive overconfidence effect.
Ah, yes. I feel like this is almost a defining characteristic of our species sometimes. A bit of healthy ego, maybe gone too far.
You're not wrong. This bias describes our consistent tendency to overestimate our knowledge, our ability to predict the future, and our control over events.
In essence, we believe we know more than we actually do, and that we're better at things than we actually are.
It's a powerful internal delusion that often makes us feel good, right? Boosts the ego. But it can lead to some truly terrible decisions.
Kahneman's 1980s research, along with others, extensively documented this. People consistently overestimate their skills and the accuracy of their judgment.
Like driving ability. Everyone thinks they're above average.
That's the classic example. Statistically impossible, of course. This overconfidence leads to risky behaviors and poor decision-making across the board, from financial investments to project planning. It's not just a minor flaw. It's a deeply ingrained aspect of human psychology, maybe a kind of protective ego boost that helps us take action.
But it can backfire spectacularly. This plays out clearly and often, well, spectacularly badly in 2025. We frequently see amateur traders overbetting on volatile stocks, right?
Convinced they've got the magic touch.
Convinced they've got a secret insight or superior ability to predict market movements, only to lose fortunes. Their overconfidence in their own knowledge and skills blinds them to the inherent randomness and complexity of the market.
They believe they can beat the odds consistently, when professionals often struggle.
That's such a common story. And to give a US Live example, think of someone confidently predicting the outcome of the Super Bowl, maybe down in Las Vegas, placing huge bets despite historical data showing how unpredictable major sports events can be.
Yeah, I've got a feeling.
Or that driver in Los Angeles traffic who believes they are above average at driving, weaving through lanes, even if statistics show that most drivers make similar mistakes and overestimate their skills.
It's particularly prevalent in the startup world, too. Founders might be incredibly wildly confident in their disruptive technology, say, a new AI-powered food delivery service.
They have to be confident to some extent.
True, but they might wildly underestimate the competition, the market shifts, the regulatory hurdles, leading to massive investments in ultimately doomed ventures.
That belief that I know a good deal when I see one, or my idea is foolproof, often leads to disastrous investments or projects.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is to embrace doubt, Cultivate intellectual humility. It's not a weakness, it's a strength.
Yeah. Actively seek disconfirming evidence for your beliefs. Rigorously test your knowledge and assumptions. Act, how could I be wrong here?
hmm And add generous buffers to your plans, time buffers, financial buffers, to mitigate the inevitable risks of overconfidence. A little humility, a little healthy self-doubt can genuinely save you a lot of grief and lead to much more realistic and successful outcomes.
That humility is such a powerful tool, and it leads us nicely into Chapter 17, You Control Less Than You Think, which highlights the illusion of control.
Ah, yes. I often think this is why we love rituals, lucky charms, superstitions, even when we rationally know they probably don't work.
You're absolutely right. The core concept here is that we tend to overestimate our ability to control or influence outcomes that are, in reality, largely determined by chance or complex external factors we can't influence.
We desperately want to believe we're the driver's seat, even when we're undeniably just passengers subject to random bumps in the road. It's a comforting delusion, isn't it?
Very comforting. Ellen Langer's 1970s studies famously showcased this illusion. For example, she found people believed they could influence purely random outcomes like dice rolls or lottery drawings
How?
through personal rituals like throwing the dice harder for high numbers or choosing their own lottery numbers instead of getting random ones. They felt more confident, more in control, even though it made zero objective difference.
These experiments clearly demonstrated how we impose a sense of personal control over genuinely random events, almost as a coping mechanism against the anxiety of uncertainty. We feel better thinking we have a say, even if it's purely imaginary.
And you still see this everywhere. Thinking about 2025, you might observe traders using lucky algorithms or specific chart setups.
Convinced their personalized, often superstitious trading programs will yield better results.
Ignoring the fundamental randomness and unpredictability of short-term market movements. They attribute success to their method or their lucky day rather than simply to market fluctuations or chance.
That's such a human tendency. And to give a U.S. live example for our listeners, think about sports fans. So many in the U.S. will wear a specific lucky jersey or perform a particular ritual while watching their favorite team play.
Sitting in the same spot on the couch.
Exactly, convinced their actions will somehow influence the game's outcome, hundreds or thousands of miles away.
Or consider someone meticulously arranging their workspace or desk in an office, maybe in New York City.
Everything perfectly aligned.
Believing that this level of organization and control over their immediate environment will directly lead to a major promotion, while maybe overlooking the many other factors actually at play: company performance, office politics, their boss's subjective assessment.
Even choosing lottery numbers that have special meaning to you, birthdays or anniversaries.
Or believing you can will a traffic light to turn green by staring at it. These are common, everyday manifestations of this illusion of control.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is to try and recognize and then accept what is genuinely outside of your control.
Which is often more than we like to admit.
Usually, yes. This acceptance can help reduce unnecessary stress and anxiety. It allows you to focus your energy where it truly matters, on the things you can influence.
And make more rational decisions based on actual levers you can pull, rather than wishful thinking or superstitious rituals.
Exactly. It's about focusing your effort effectively.
That acceptance can be so freeing. Now for our final bias in this section on decision-making, Chapter 18, Never Pay Your Lawyer by the Hour, delves into the incentive super-response tendency.
This concept, I think, explains a huge chunk of human behavior in systems. Everything from economics to education to workplace dynamics.
It really does. This is a powerful concept. People respond predictably, often very strongly, to incentives.
We follow the rewards.
Dobelli argues that when those incentives are poorly designed, they can lead to unintended and often perverse counterproductive behaviors.
It's about how we're wired to chase rewards and avoid punishments, sometimes to our own detriment or the detriment of others, if the system isn't carefully thought through. The incentives drive the behavior, even if the behavior isn't ideal.
B.F. Skinner's 1950s reinforcement studies provided a fundamental foundation for understanding this, didn't they?
Absolutely. They showed how behavior can be shaped, quite dramatically, by patterns of rewards and punishments. This principle isn't just basic psychology. It's fundamental to economics and behavioral science.
It illustrates how systems of incentives can powerfully direct human action for better, or sometimes for worse. We are, at our core, incentive-driven creatures.
And this is incredibly relevant today. In 2025, think of commission-driven financial advisors.
Okay.
Due to their incentive structure getting paid more for selling certain products, they might consciously or subconsciously push risky funds or complex products.
Ones that might not be in their client's absolute best interest.
Right. But they yield a higher commission for the advisor. Their reward system dictates their behavior, potentially leading to suboptimal outcomes for clients because their incentives are fundamentally misaligned with the client's goals.
That's a classic conflict of interest, driven entirely by the incentive structure. And to give a U.S. live example, consider the notorious example of a car mechanic, maybe in Texas, who is paid by the number or cost of repairs they perform, not by the hour.
Piecework.
This creates a clear incentive for them to recommend unnecessary repairs or perhaps prolong the diagnostic process to find more problems.
Rather than finding the simplest, most cost-effective solution for the customer.
Exactly. Another example, public school teachers in some districts whose salaries or bonuses are tied solely to student standardized test scores.
Oh yeah, that's controversial.
This can incentivize teaching to the test, focusing narrowly on test-taking strategies rather than fostering genuine critical thinking, creativity, or a broader love of learning. The incentive distorts the goal.
Similarly, salespeople in a department store might push high-margin, maybe less suitable products on customers if their commission structure heavily rewards those specific items over others that might be a better fit.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is always consider the incentives at play for yourself and for others involved in any situation or transaction.
Yeah, ask what's driving their behavior.
Align incentives carefully if you're designing a system to ensure desired outcomes. And be particularly wary of situations where others' incentives clearly conflict with your best interests.
For critical services, like legal advice as the chapter title suggests, or financial planning, try to explore flat fees or value-based compensation models to avoid these pitfalls entirely. Remove the conflicting incentive.
Okay, we've explored how our perceptions and decision-making can be flawed. Now let's dive into our next section. The traps of context and emotion, how external factors sway us. Emma, chapter 20. Never judge a decision by its outcome, introduces us to outcome bias.
This one feels like one of the most fundamentally unfair biases of all, doesn't it? Because life involves luck.
It really can be. The core concept here is that we tend to judge the quality of a decision based solely on its outcome, whether it turned out well or poorly.
Ignoring the process.
Right. Rather than judging it based on the quality of the decision-making process itself at the time it was made, with the information then available.
It's a fundamental error that completely obscures true learning, because a good outcome doesn't always mean it was a good decision, and vice versa. A bad process can get lucky, and a good process can get unlucky.
Jonathan Barron's 1980s research meticulously exposed this cognitive flaw. It highlighted how a good outcome can very effectively mask a truly bad decision, one made based on flawed logic, poor information, or just a wild gamble.
And conversely, a bad outcome, maybe due to pure bad luck, can unjustly condemn a perfectly sound, well-reasoned decision that simply ran into unforeseen circumstances, like a sudden market crash or a natural disaster.
It's a distinction we often fail to make, judging by results alone, and it hinders our ability to accurately assess risk, skill, and process quality. We reward luck and punish misfortune.
And this bias is incredibly prevalent today, especially in fields like finance or business. Thinking about 2025, consider the world of cryptocurrency again.
Okay.
Risky crypto bets that miraculously succeeded are hailed as genius. Someone might have made a completely irrational, ill-informed gamble on a meme coin based on nothing but hype.
Pure speculation.
But if it miraculously pays off tenfold, they're suddenly lauded as a financial savant or a visionary investor on social media.
Even though the decision itself might have been terrible, maybe a 1 in 100 shot based on fundamentals, but the lucky outcome paints it in an entirely positive light, completely obscuring the actual poor judgment involved.
That's such a clear example. And to give a U.S. live example for our listeners, imagine a CEO of a major tech company, perhaps in California. They make a high-stakes, poorly researched business decision based purely on a gut feeling, ignoring market data and advisors.
Okay, risky move.
If it miraculously pays off due to some unforeseen market shift that just happens to favor them, they might be hailed as a brilliant visionary, a bold risk-taker.
Yeah. Their reputation soars.
Exactly. Conversely, if a different CEO makes a well-reasoned, meticulously planned venture fail due to a completely unpredictable black swan event, like a sudden global supply chain disruption or a natural disaster hitting a key facility,
They might be unfairly criticized, even fired for making a bad choice, even though their process was sound and the outcome was pure bad luck.
Right. People often praise a reckless gambler who wins big at a Las Vegas casino, ignoring the statistical improbability and the flawed reasoning behind the bet. The same decision made 10 times might yield success once and failure 9 times. Focusing only on the single success is pure outcome bias.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is that to truly learn and improve, you must focus on the quality of your decision-making process.
A separate process from outcome.
Evaluate the information you had available at the time, the logic you applied, the potential risks you considered when the decision was made. Don't let lucky or unlucky outcomes distort your judgment of the decision itself.
It's about evaluating the strategy, not just the scoreboard, if you want to get better over the long run.
That's a great principle to apply. And it leads us to Chapter 21, Less is More, where Dobelli introduces us to the seemingly counterintuitive paradox of choice.
Ah, yes. I think this is something we all experience intensely, especially in our modern world, overflowing with endless options for everything.
It really is. The core concept here is counterintuitive. While having more options might initially seem appealing and liberating, look at all this choice, having too many choices can actually backfire.
It leads to decision paralysis.
Right. Increased anxiety, and ultimately lower satisfaction with the eventual choice you finally make. We become overwhelmed by the sheer volume.
Barry Schwartz's groundbreaking 2000 studies famously confirm this paradox. His research, like the famous JAM study, showed that beyond a certain point, increasing the number of available options actually becomes detrimental to well-being and the quality of our decisions.
What initially feels like freedom quickly turns into a burden. It leads to regret and second-guessing because you're always wondering if you picked the absolute best among so many possibilities. Maybe that other jam was slightly better.
Exactly. The cognitive load is too high. This is a huge problem in 2025, and I see it constantly. Think about streaming platforms that overwhelm users with endless shows.
Oh, the endless scroll. Guilty as charged.
You spend more time scrolling through thousands of options on Netflix or Max or whatever platform than you actually do watching anything. It leads to decision fatigue.
And you often just end up settling for something mediocre or re-watching something you've seen before simply to end the exhausting search.
Precisely. Or, to give a U.S. live example, think of a typical American supermarket aisle, maybe the cereal aisle. 50 different brands of toothpaste, or 20 different kinds of breakfast cereal.
It's overwhelming.
While initially appealing to have variety, this vast array can make a simple task feel incredibly complex. It leads some customers to just grab the first familiar brand or even abandon the purchase altogether, rather than sifting through all the nuances of flakes versus puffs versus granola.
Or think about a young person, maybe in their 20s, living in a big city like New York.
So many possibilities.
Facing an overwhelming number of potential career paths, thousands of dating app profiles, endless lifestyle options. The sheer volume of choice can lead to anxiety, a chronic fear of missing out, FOMO, and an inability to commit to anything.
Rather than feeling liberated, they feel paralyzed. Even choosing a simple coffee at Starbucks, with its myriad customization option size, milk, syrup, foam, temperature, can induce a slight decision fatigue before your day even starts.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is simplify your options whenever possible, especially for less important decisions.
Yeah, don't sweat the small stuff with too many choices.
Consciously reduce the number of choices you consider. Maybe limit yourself to comparing just 2 or 3 options for bigger decisions. This helps you make decisions more confidently and, surprisingly, often increases your satisfaction with the outcomes.
Because you're not haunted by the ghosts of the choices you didn't make. Sometimes, less truly is more.
That's a powerful insight for our over-optioned world. And speaking of things we cling to, our next bias from Chapter 23, Don't Cling to Things, explores the endowment effect.
Ah, yes. This one highlights our strangely emotional attachment to our possessions, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The core concept of this bias is that we tend to ascribe a higher value to something merely because we own it.
Just the fact of ownership inflates its worth in our eyes.
Compared to what we would be willing to pay for that exact same item if we didn't already own it, our sense of possession, of something being mine, significantly inflates its perceived worth to us.
Kahneman's 1990s studies quantified this bias beautifully. His research, often involving coffee mugs or pens, showed how our sense of possession inflates perceived value.
How do they show that?
Well, they'd give half the participants a mug for free. Then they asked those who got a mug how much they'd sell it for, and asked those who didn't get a mug how much they'd pay for one. The sellers consistently demanded about twice as much as the buyers were willing to pay.
Wow. Just because they owned it for a few minutes.
Exactly. It makes us remarkably reluctant to sell things for their objective market price. It's not just about the item's utility. It's about our emotional attachment to what is ours. It's a kind of internal bias that makes us think our stuff is inherently better or more valuable.
This is particularly stark in 2025 with the world of digital assets, like NFTs. We see NFT holders clinging to worthless tokens long after their market value has plummeted.
hmm Even when the market clearly says it's worth next to nothing.
The perceived value they assign to their unique digital collectible is far greater than what anyone else would be willing to pay, leading to a refusal to sell even at a significant loss. Ownership creates attachment, even to digital bits.
That's a great modern example. And to give a more traditional U.S. live example, imagine you bought tickets to a concert, maybe in Philadelphia, for $100.
Okay.
As the date approaches, you realize you're not actually that excited about going anymore. Maybe your taste changed or you're just tired. Someone offers to buy your ticket for $120 a profit.
Sounds good.
But many people would refuse. Even though they wouldn't spend $120 to buy that same ticket if they didn't already own it, the fact that it's their ticket makes it feel worth more than its market value.
Or consider a homeowner, maybe in Atlanta, putting their house on the market,
Pricing it high?
pricing it significantly above comparable properties in the neighborhood because of the sentimental value or all the memories they've made there. That subjective value inflates the price, leading to it sitting on the market for months, unsold.
This also explains why it's so hard to sell old belongings at a yard sale or online for what you believe they're worth based on your history with them.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is to practice objectivity when evaluating your possessions. Try to see them as a neutral observer would.
Yeah, ask yourself, what would I honestly pay for this item today if I didn't already own it?
And be willing to let go of what you own when rational trades or decisions dictate. Freeing yourself from this emotional attachment to possessions can lead to much more rational financial and life decisions.
That objectivity is key. And continuing our exploration of external influences, Chapter 25, The Calamity of Conformity, discusses groupthink.
This is such a critical concept for anyone involved in team decisions, whether it's a corporate board, a government committee, or even just a family discussion about where to go on vacation.
It absolutely is. Here's the core concept. In tightly knit, cohesive groups, the psychological desire for harmony and conformity often overrides a realistic appraisal of alternative courses of action.
So keeping everyone happy becomes more important than making the right decision.
Essentially, yes. Dissent is subtly or overtly stifled. Critical thinking takes a back seat. This leads to flawed decisions because the group's need for cohesion, for everyone to get along, trumps open discussion and the consideration of unpopular but potentially correct ideas.
Irving Janis's crucial 1970s research on policy failures is the historical bedrock for understanding groupthink, isn't it?
It is. He highlighted how groupthink could lead to catastrophic decisions made by highly intelligent, experienced people. He analyzed historical fiascos like the Bay of Pigs invasion or the escalation of the Vietnam War.
How did groupthink play a role there?
In these instances, Janis argued, a strong directive leader combined with a highly cohesive group inadvertently suppressed individual doubts and alternative strategies. People didn't want to challenge the leader or disrupt the group consensus.
Leading to disastrous outcomes that, in hindsight, seem almost avoidable if someone had just spoken up.
Exactly. And this remains a major concern today. In 2025, especially in the corporate world, we often see corporate boards rushing into major AI investments, for example.
Everyone's doing it. Got to keep up.
Right. And in that environment, dissent from those who might have valid concerns about the risks, the ethics, or the actual financial viability might be stifled. The pressure to conform to the prevailing optimistic opinion or to please a charismatic CEO pushing the initiative can lead to collective blindness.
No one wants to be the skunk at the garden party, the dissenting voice.
Precisely. And to provide a U.S. live example, think of the decision-making process at a major airline, maybe based in Dallas. If a board of directors, perhaps dominated by strong personalities, unanimously agrees on a massive new aircraft purchase without thoroughly scrutinizing the financial risks or considering alternative suppliers.
Dissenting voices from, say, engineering or finance might be silenced, or they might just self-censor, not wanting to challenge the consensus.
Leading to a potentially disastrous multi-billion-dollar investment based on incomplete analysis. Another classic U.S. example is jury deliberation.
Oh yeah, trying to reach a unanimous verdict.
One or two jurors might quietly go along with the majority opinion, even if they have lingering doubts, simply to avoid conflict, break the deadlock, and reach a quick verdict.
This also applies in smaller settings, right? Like small-town community meetings.
Absolutely. Where a powerful local figure's idea for a new park or a controversial development project might go unchallenged, despite obvious flaws, just because people don't want to oppose them or disrupt the meeting.
So, the crucial listener takeaway here is to actively encourage diverse voices, critical thinking, and structured dissent within groups you're part of.
Yeah, make it safe to disagree.
Maybe appoint a devil's advocate whose specific job is to poke holes in the plan, or implement anonymous feedback mechanisms to ensure all perspectives are heard, even the uncomfortable ones.
This helps ensure you avoid collective blindness and make much more robust, well-considered decisions.
That's incredibly important practical advice. Now, moving on to the psychological power of rarity. Chapter 27, Why the Last Cookie in the Jar Makes Your Mouth Water, introduces the scarcity error.
Ah, yes. This one is so often exploited in sales and marketing because it's just so darn effective.
It is. The core concept here is that we tend to assign a higher value to things simply because they are rare or perceived as becoming rare.
Limited supply makes it seem more desirable.
This perception of scarcity leads to irrational decisions, often driven by a sense of urgency, the fear of missing out, FOMO. It's the thrill of potentially missing out, of something being unavailable soon that drives our behavior and makes us want it even more, regardless of its actual utility.
Robert Cialdini's 1980s studies on persuasion extensively documented how scarcity creates this powerful psychological pressure to acquire something.
How does it work?
When something is presented as limited in quantity, only 3 left, or available for a limited time, sale ends Friday, our innate desire for freedom and choice feels threatened. We react against that potential loss of opportunity by wanting the scarce item more intensely.
We interpret scarcity itself as a signal of value or high demand. If it's hard to get, it must be good.
Exactly. This is a constant marketing tactic in 2025, and it shows no signs of slowing down. Limited edition NFTs spark buying frenzies, for example.
Yeah, people rushing to acquire unique digital assets purely because of their artificial scarcity.
Often ignoring their intrinsic value or long-term utility. The urgency created by limited availability or a drop drives irrational demand, often leading to rapid price bubbles and subsequent crashes.
That's a great example of artificial scarcity driving demand. And to give a classic U.S. live example, think of Black Friday sales, particularly around Thanksgiving.
Oh, the chaos.
Stores advertise limited stock or these incredible doorbuster deals available only for the first few customers. This perceived scarcity drives people to literally camp out overnight, even fight over items.
Just to acquire something that might not even be particularly needed or even that well priced once you factor in the hassle.
Right. Or consider a limited time offer for a new housing development in a popular city like Seattle.
Only a few units remain at this special price.
The developer creates a sense of urgency, implying that only a handful of units are left, pressuring potential buyers to commit quickly, perhaps before conducting thorough due diligence or exploring other options.
This is also why collectible items, from rare baseball cards to vintage video games to certain sneakers, command such astronomical prices. Their value is almost entirely derived from their scarcity.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is pause. When you feel that pressure of scarcity or urgency, take a breath and critically evaluate the situation.
Yeah, ask yourself, is this item really valuable, or does it just seem valuable because it's rare or about to disappear?
Am I being manipulated by an artificial deadline or a clever marketing ploy? Don't let that sense of urgency cloud your judgment and push you into a decision you might later regret. Judge the item on its merits, not its availability.
That's a valuable reminder for shoppers everywhere. And next up, Chapter 30, Why the Wheel of Fortune Makes Our Heads Spin, Eliminates the Fascinating Anchor Bias.
Ah, yes. This one can explain so much about how we negotiate prices and make estimations, often without even realizing we're being influenced.
It really does. The core concept of anchoring is that our judgments and estimations are heavily, often irrationally, influenced by the first piece of information we receive on a topic.
Even if that information is largely irrelevant.
Even if it's completely irrelevant, this initial piece of information acts as a psychological anchor, setting a reference point that then skews all our subsequent evaluations. We find it hard to break free from that initial number.
Tversky and Kahneman's 1970s anchoring studies definitively proved its power, didn't they?
They did. They showed how an arbitrary initial number, sometimes one generated completely randomly, like by spinning a wheel of fortune in front of participants,
Okay.
could profoundly sway people's subsequent estimations of something totally unrelated. Like, they'd ask people to estimate the percentage of African countries in the UN after seeing the random number on the wheel.
And the number on the wheel influenced their estimate.
Significantly. People who saw a high number on the wheel gave much higher estimates for the UN percentage, and those who saw a low number gave lower estimates. That initial random number acted like an anchor, pulling their subsequent judgments towards it, often without their conscious awareness.
Wow, that's subtle but powerful.
Incredibly, this is a widely used and highly effective tactic in 2025 marketing and sales. Retailers use high original prices, right?
That was $500, now $250 tactic.
Exactly. That original price is often artificially inflated, or maybe the item was never genuinely offered at that price, but it serves as a powerful psychological anchor.
So when you see the jacket originally priced at $500, now only $250, the $500 anchor makes $250 seem like an incredible bargain.
Even if the jacket's true market value or production cost is actually closer to $200, you feel like you're saving $250 rather than just paying $250.
That's so clever and insidious. And to give a U.S. live example, imagine you're negotiating the price of a used car at a dealership, maybe in Atlanta.
Okay, the haggling begins.
The salesperson first quotes a ridiculously high price, say $30,000, for a car you know is realistically worth maybe $20,000. That $30,000 is the anchor.
Sets the high end of the range.
Even if you manage to haggle them down to $22,000, you might walk away feeling like you got a great deal because it's so much lower than their initial anchor.
Even though you still paid $2,000 above the car's fair market value, the anchor warped your perception of a good price.
Another example is a charity asking for a donation. If their initial suggested amount in the letter is $100.
That becomes the anchor.
Right. Even if you decide to donate $50, it feels like a smaller step down from the $100 anchor than it would if their initial suggestion had been, say, $25. It influences how generous your donation feels.
This plays out constantly in real estate negotiations, salary discussions, anywhere numbers are involved. The first number dropped often sets the tone.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is to be acutely aware of initial numbers in any negotiation or estimation. Recognize them as potential anchors.
Yeah, consciously try to ignore irrelevant anchors. Do your own independent research beforehand to determine fair value or a realistic range.
This allows you to negotiate smarter, make more objective judgments, and avoid being swayed by an arbitrary starting point someone else set. Know your own number before you hear theirs.
That's a great tip for anyone buying, selling, or negotiating. Now, our final bias in this section on context and emotion from Chapter 32, Why Evil Strikes Harder Than Good, explains loss aversion.
Ah, yes. This one feels almost foundational to so many of our fears, motivations, and even economic behaviors. The power of loss.
It absolutely is, and it's profoundly important in understanding human decision-making. The core concept here is that the psychological pain of losing something is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining an equivalent amount.
So losing $100 feels twice as bad as gaining $100 feels good.
Roughly, yes. Studies suggest that's about the ratio. It means we're much more motivated to avoid a loss than we are to achieve an equivalent gain. We're wired to protect what we have more fiercely than we strive for more.
Kahneman's 1979 prospect theory, part of his Nobel Prize-winning work, quantified this fundamental bias, didn't it?
It did. It showed how this asymmetry between gains and losses drives many of our economic and behavioral decisions. It helps explain everything from why people hold on to losing investments too long, hoping to avoid realizing the loss,
to why marketing often focuses on avoiding missing out, don't miss this sale, rather than highlighting the benefits of gaining something new.
Exactly. Because the negative emotional impact of a potential loss just hits harder and motivates us more strongly.
And in 2025, you can see this clearly in investing behavior. Fear of stock losses drives overly conservative portfolios.
Even when those conservative choices mean potentially missing out on significant long-term gains, that more balanced or slightly more aggressive investments might yield over time.
Investors are often so afraid of losing money in the short term that they'll make decisions that aren't actually optimized for long-term growth, purely to avoid that painful sensation of a financial setback, of seeing red in their account.
That's a classic investor dilemma. And to give a U.S. live example, think of a stock investor, maybe in New York. They bought shares in a tech company at $50 per share.
Okay.
The stock drops to $40. Prospect theory and loss aversion suggest they are much more likely to hold on to that stock, hoping it will recover back to $50 just to break even.
To avoid realizing the $10 loss.
Exactly. Even if new information suggests it's actually a bad investment now and likely to drop further, they'll hold on longer than they would if they were evaluating it fresh.
Whereas if the stock went up $10, they might be quicker to sell and lock in the gain.
Often, yes. This fear of loss leads people to make excessively risk-averse choices in some domains, while potentially taking foolish risks, like holding losers too long, in others, just to avoid the feeling of loss.
And in marketing, like you said, companies use phrases like "don't miss out" or "limited time to save," rather than focusing only on the benefits of gaining.
Because the avoidance of loss is often a stronger psychological motivator than the prospect of gain. Consider a city government proposing a new tax that will genuinely benefit the community with improved schools or roads,
Voters often focus more intensely on the immediate loss of their tax dollars.
than the potential future gain of improved public services, even if the gain is objectively larger. The loss feels more concrete and immediate.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is to strive consciously to weigh potential losses and gains more evenly, more rationally.
Yeah, try to overcome that built-in asymmetry.
Understand that avoiding loss, while a natural and powerful instinct, can sometimes prevent you from taking necessary or beneficial risks, ultimately leading to missed opportunities for growth, wealth, or positive change. It's about finding a more rational balance.
Well put. We've uncovered so many fascinating traps related to context and emotion. Now for our final section, the misleading lenses of judgment, how we distort understanding. First up, Chapter 36, Never Ask a Writer if the Novel is Autobiographical, tackles the fundamental attribution error.
This one is all about how quickly and often unfairly we judge other people's behavior.
It really is. The core concept here is our pervasive tendency to overestimate the influence of personality traits or character.
Thinking that's just the kind of person they are.
Right. And systematically underestimate the influence of situational factors when explaining others' behavior. We jump to conclusions about someone's inherent character, often completely ignoring the context or pressures they're operating under.
Lee Ross's pivotal 1970s research formally defined this error, didn't it?
It did. His work showed how we often leap to conclusions about someone's character, labeling them as lazy or rude or incompetent, rather than pausing to consider their circumstances.
And interestingly, we're far more forgiving of our own situational failures, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. I was late because the traffic was terrible. But if someone else is late, they're so unreliable. It's a fundamental asymmetry in how we view ourselves versus others. We give ourselves the benefit of the situational doubt, but not others.
And this bias is absolutely rampant today in 2025, especially with the rise of instant judgment platforms like social media. Online shaming often ignores context.
Completely. A short video clip showing someone's stress-driven outburst may be taken out of context.
It can go viral, and the individual is instantly labeled and condemned by millions who know nothing about the preceding situation or the person's life. A single action is taken as proof of their entire character.
It's scary how fast that mob mentality can form, fueled by this very bias. And to give a U.S. live example, imagine you're driving on a highway, maybe in California, and another driver cuts you off aggressively.
Your immediate reaction is probably anger. What an inconsiderate jerk.
Exactly. You instantly attribute their behavior directly to their bad character. You don't pause to consider that they might be rushing to the hospital for an emergency, or maybe they genuinely didn't see you in their blind spot, or perhaps they're just having an absolutely terrible day and made a mistake.
Similarly, if a colleague at work, say in Boston, is late for an important meeting,
You might immediately label them internally as unreliable, or lazy, or disrespectful of my time.
without considering possibilities like a sudden childcare issue they had to deal with or a major unexpected public transport delay, we default to character judgment.
This bias is just rampant in social media comment sections, where people instantly judge and condemn others based on a single action or statement without any real contextual understanding.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is, before judging others, make a conscious effort to consider the situation. Ask yourself what external factors might be influencing their behavior right now.
Yeah, try to walk a mile in their shoes mentally.
This simple act cultivates empathy, it improves understanding, and it prevents those hasty, often deeply unfair conclusions about people's character. It leads to much more constructive interactions.
That's a powerful call for more empathy in our judgments. And speaking of misjudgments, next, in Chapter 37, Why You Shouldn't Believe in the Stork, Dobelli explores false causality.
This is where we mistakenly connect two things that happen around the same time, assuming one must have caused the other, even if there's no logical link.
It's a classic logical fallacy, John. The core concept here is that we mistakenly assume that because two events occur together, correlation, or one follows the other closely in time, one must have caused the other.
But as the statisticians constantly remind us, correlation does not imply causation.
Exactly. But our brains constantly and often stubbornly try to make that leap. We crave explanations. We crave cause and effect narratives.
The philosopher David Hume, way back in the 18th century, provided early warnings against the pitfalls of attributing causation based merely on observed correlation.
And modern statistical methods continually reinforce this crucial distinction, teaching us to rigorously look for true causal links, control variables, consider alternative explanations, rather than being misled by mere coincidences or common underlying factors that might be driving both events.
It's often a battle between our intuitive brain wanting a simple story and our logical brain demanding proof.
And this is a significant problem today, especially with the rapid spread of misinformation and disinformation online. Social media constantly links unrelated trends, right?
Oh, yeah. For example, suggesting 5G technology and health issues are causally linked, despite overwhelming scientific evidence to the contrary.
People see two things happening around the same time, the rollout of 5G and reports of certain health symptoms, and they wrongly assume one caused the other, fueling conspiracy theories and unfounded fears.
It's incredibly dangerous when that happens with health information. And to give a classic U.S. live example, the observation that ice cream sales and shark attacks both increased significantly during the summer months.
A clear correlation.
Someone falling for false causality might conclude that eating ice cream somehow causes shark attacks.
Which is absurd, of course. In reality, both are correlated with a third factor, warm weather. Warm weather leads more people to buy ice cream, and indeed it leads more people to swim in the ocean where sharks might be present.
Another example. A city, maybe in Michigan, implements a new fancy traffic light system. 6 months later, statistics show that local crime rates have dropped.
It's tempting to assume the new traffic lights somehow caused the drop in crime. Maybe they improved visibility or something.
Right. But in reality, the drop could be due to a completely unrelated factor. Perhaps a new police chief was hired, or new community programs were launched, or maybe the local economy improved, leading to less desperation. The lights might have had nothing to do with it.
This is often exploited in advertising, too, with vague claims linking a product to a desirable outcome. Use our shampoo for amazing confidence, without any proven causal link.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is always be skeptical when presented with correlations, especially surprising ones.
Yeah, ask, is there really a causal link here?
Rigorously test for causation. Consider alternative explanations. Could there be a common underlying factor driving both things? Is it possibly just sheer coincidence?
Especially before making significant decisions or forming strong beliefs based on a perceived cause and effect relationship. Be a detective. Look for the real mechanism. Don't just accept the correlation at face value.
That's such a crucial, critical thinking skill in our information-saturated world. And following that, Chapter 42, it's not what you say, but how you say it, delves into the power of framing.
This one really highlights the incredible power of language and presentation. How the exact same information can be perceived totally differently depending on how it's packaged.
It absolutely does. The core concept of framing is that the way information is presented, or framed, significantly influences our perception, our judgment, and ultimately our choices.
Even if the underlying facts, the objective reality, are completely identical.
Right. The choice of words, the context it's put in, the aspects that are emphasized versus downplayed at all, makes a profound difference to how we interpret and react to that information.
Kahneman and Tversky's 1980s framing studies powerfully demonstrated this. They showed how people react dramatically differently to choices depending on whether they're presented in terms of potential gains or potential losses.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Imagine a medical treatment. If you tell people this treatment has a 90% success rate, they are far more likely to choose it than if you frame the exact same statistic as this treatment has a 10% failure rate.
Even though it's precisely the same information, the positive frame feels much better.
Exactly. It highlights how easily our logical reasoning can be bypassed by the simple presentation of information, making us susceptible to subtle manipulation through language.
This is a key tool in policy debates and politics, isn't it? Especially in 2025. Climate policies gain support via positive framing, for instance.
Emphasizing benefits like green jobs or energy independence or cleaner air for our children.
Rather than focusing primarily on the potential costs, regulations, or restrictions involved. The same policy can be framed in dramatically different ways to elicit wildly different public responses purely through the language used by proponents and opponents.
That's a perfect political example.
Yep.
And to give another U.S. live example, think again about how health information is communicated. A doctor telling a patient there's a 90% chance of survival for a particular surgery is far more reassuring and likely to lead to consent.
Then framing the identical statistic as there's a 10% chance of mortality. The word mortality just hits differently even if the number is the same.
Absolutely. Or consider political campaigns again. A new tax proposal might be framed by one party as a necessary investment in our community's future, funding schools and infrastructure.
While the opposing party frames the exact same tax as a crippling burden on hardworking American families, stifling the economy, the language used, rather than the specific details of the tax itself, heavily sways public opinion.
Even in marketing, think about food labeling. A package of ground beef might be labeled 75% lean rather than 25% fat.
Sounds much healthier, even though it's the same meat.
Exactly. It appeals more to health-conscious consumers simply due to the positive framing.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is to actively try to reframe issues and information yourself. See them from multiple angles.
Yeah, challenge the way facts are presented to you. Ask, how else could this be described?
Consider how different wordings or contexts might alter your perception. This allows you to strip away the linguistic packaging and make more objective judgments based on the underlying substance.
That's a great mental exercise to practice regularly. And next, Chapter 50, Sweet Little Lies, unmasks the pervasive and often uncomfortable phenomenon of cognitive dissonance.
Ah, yes. This one is all about how we strive for internal consistency and the mental gymnastics we perform to maintain it, especially when our actions contradict our beliefs.
It's a powerful one. The core concept here is that we experience psychological discomfort, what Leon Festinger called dissonance, when we hold conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes, or, more commonly, when our actions contradict our deeply held beliefs about ourselves.
Like believing you're an honest person but then telling a white lie.
Exactly. That creates an internal tension, an uncomfortable feeling. And to reduce this discomfort, we often unconsciously engage in mental maneuvers. We rationalize our behavior, we justify it, we downplay the inconsistency, or we might even subtly change our beliefs to align better with our actions.
Festinger's classic 1950 studies revealed this powerful drive for internal consistency. His research, like the famous study where people were paid either $1 or $20 to lie about a boring task being interesting.
The ones paid only $1 actually convinced themselves the task was interesting.
Right. Because they had insufficient external justification, $1 wasn't much, for lying, they reduced the dissonance by changing their internal attitude towards the task. The $20 group didn't need to. They knew they lied for the money.
It showed how we often engage in self-deception to maintain a positive self-image. I'm not the kind of person who lies for $1, and reduce that uncomfortable tension of holding contradictory ideas. It's a powerful mental mechanism for protecting our ego and maintaining a coherent, if sometimes slightly dishonest, self-narrative.
This is a classic in 2025, and a really relatable one for many, especially concerning investments or purchases. Remember the NFT buyers defending worthless purchases?
Oh yeah, even as the market crashed around them.
Despite clear evidence of a market collapse or the undeniable lack of utility for many tokens, many buyers would fiercely defend their investment online. They'd rationalize their decision, it's about the community, it's long-term, to avoid the uncomfortable truth that they might have made a bad financial move based on hype.
The discomfort of admitting a mistake, especially a public or expensive one, is so strong that they'd rather twist reality or find new justifications.
That's such a clear example of self-justification driven by dissonance. And to give a more everyday U.S. live example for our listeners, imagine someone living in a suburb, maybe near Kansas City. They buy a very expensive new electric car, primarily because they genuinely believe it's the most environmentally responsible choice, and they see themselves as eco-conscious.
Okay, aligning action with belief.
But then, a week later, they read a well-researched article detailing the significant environmental impact of lithium mining for the batteries, the energy used in production, etc.
Oh, Dissonance incoming.
Exactly. To resolve the dissonance between their environmentally conscious self-image and the car's more complex true impact, they might rationalize. They might say, well, at least I'm not burning gasoline directly, or it's still better than most cars on the road. Maybe downplaying or dismissing the inconvenient new information.
Another very common example is smokers who absolutely know the serious health risks associated with smoking.
Mm-hmm. The dissonance must be huge there.
Right. So they rationalize by saying things like, well, my grandpa smoked until he was 90 and was fine, or it helps me relax, the stress would kill me faster, or, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow anyway. These justifications help them continue the behavior without constantly facing the uncomfortable truth of the risks.
So the crucial listener takeaway here is to develop the courage to confront contradictions honestly, even when it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, lean into the discomfort sometimes.
Acknowledge inconsistencies in your beliefs and actions, because that painful moment of recognition, that facing of the dissonance, is the first, most vital step towards genuine self-awareness, growth, and making better, more rational choices in the future.
That's a powerful and essential skill for self-improvement. And finally, for our deep dive today, let's talk about chapters 98 and 99, Why You Shouldn't Read the News. Dobelli actually repeats this concept for emphasis in his book, underscoring his controversial idea of the news illusion.
Yes, this is a provocative one, isn't it? Suggesting that something most of us consider vital for being informed citizens might actually be a hindrance to clear thinking.
It's definitely provocative and goes against the grain. Dobelli's core argument is that consuming daily news, particularly the sensationalist, short-term, event-driven kind, can actually hinder clear thinking.
How so?
He argues it often provides fragmented, out-of-context information. It creates a false sense of urgency about things that might not be truly important in the long run. And crucially, it distracts us from seeking out timeless, important knowledge like reading books or in-depth analyses that truly deepens our understanding of the world.
The repetition of this chapter, even placing it in the epilogue of his book, really emphasizes how profound he believes this impact is on our cognitive clarity. He thinks it's a major modern problem.
And there's support for this idea. Media studies from the 2000s onwards, and critiques from thinkers like Nassim Nicholas Taleb back this up. They show how the news media's business model inherently prioritizes novelty, drama, conflict, and instant events over genuine insight, context, and long-term understanding.
It feeds our inherent biases, right? Like our bias for dramatic stories, availability bias, and easily available information snippets.
Exactly. It creates an illusion of being informed without actually providing deep comprehension or lasting value. It's often infotainment, designed to grab attention rather than true, useful knowledge.
And this is incredibly relevant in 2025, especially with the accelerated pace of information and the challenges of misinformation. Think about deep fake news fueling election panic.
Or just the constant barrage of breaking news cycles overwhelming critical thinking. The sheer volume and speed of information make it incredibly difficult to discern what's truly important versus what's just noise.
We end up constantly reacting to the immediate, the urgent seeming, rather than reflecting on the truly significant long-term trends or issues.
It's exhausting just thinking about it. And to give a U.S. Live example for our listeners, consider the endless 24/7 news cycle on cable news channels like CNN or Fox News, or the constant stream of alerts popping up on news apps on smartphones all across the U.S.
Yeah, ding, ding, ding.
A minor political gaffe, a local crime story, some celebrity gossip, it can all be blown up into breaking news, generating anxiety and distraction, but offering very little lasting value or understanding of broader societal trends.
People can easily spend hours just scrolling through social media feeds, consuming endless snippets of information about fleeting events, controversies, outrage of the day.
Rather than dedicating that same time to reading a well-researched book, a long-form journal article, or even a thoughtful documentary that provides deeper context on a truly significant issue like climate change, economic inequality, or geopolitical shift.
This creates that dangerous illusion of being highly informed because you know about all the latest happenings,
while actually fostering a very superficial, fragmented understanding of the world. You know a little about a lot, but not much deeply about anything important.
So the powerful listener takeaway here, Dobelli argues, is to be much more selective and critical of your news consumption. Treat your attention as a precious resource.
Yeah. Prioritize timeless knowledge, in-depth analysis, and primary sources whenever possible over sensationalism and fleeting headlines.
Maybe turn off unnecessary news alerts. Consciously schedule time for deeper reading or learning rather than reactive scrolling.
Consciously invest your precious time and attention in information that truly enhances your understanding of the world, fostering genuine clarity and wisdom, rather than mere distraction or anxiety. It's about choosing the signal over the noise.
Wow, what an incredible journey that was. Through the real labyrinth of the mind, we've unpacked so many powerful, sometimes unsettling insights from Rolf Dobelli's The Art of Thinking Clearly. From the allure of survivorship bias right at the start, all the way to the insidious effects of the news illusion at the end, each one feels like a tiny crack in the facade of our rational selves.
Revealing the predictable ways our brains, try to trip us up, often with the best of intentions, trying to be efficient, trying to make sense of things quickly.
Absolutely. And the key takeaway, I think, isn't that we're somehow doomed to be irrational.
No, not at all. It's that awareness is our most potent weapon. That's the hopeful message.
Right. By truly understanding these cognitive biases, how they manifest, where they come from historically, and their modern impact, especially in our daily U.S. context.
We gain the power to pause, to reflect,
Yeah.
and to make more intentional, clearer decisions in our lives, our work, our relationships. It's about taking back a degree of control from our automatic subconscious shortcuts.
This deep dive wasn't just about listing out a bunch of mental traps. It was really about empowering you, our listener. Empowering you to become your own critical thinker. To question the obvious, to challenge your own assumptions, and to seek deeper truths beyond the surface appearances.
It's about not just seeing the world, but truly understanding it and yourself in a more profound and ultimately more effective way.
And as we wrap up, maybe leave you with this provocative thought to mull over.
Okay.
If our brains are constantly making these subtle errors, and as we've seen, many of these biases are deeply rooted in our evolutionary past or fundamental psychological drives, what current obvious truths or widely accepted societal norms might we collectively be falling for right now?
Simply because we haven't yet clearly identified or understood the underlying bias that's driving that belief or behavior.
Exactly. What cherished belief, what darling idea might you personally need to question, maybe even murder, as Dobelli puts it, to truly see clearly in your own life or in the world around you?
That's a powerful thought to leave you with indeed, a challenge to carry forward into your thinking.
Thank you so much for joining us on this enlightening and maybe slightly uncomfortable deep dive into the art of thinking clearly. We sincerely hope you feel better equipped to navigate the fascinating complexities of your own mind and the world around you.
Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep striving for that elusive clarity. We're so glad you joined us here on Book Podcast Zone.